You don't know the power of the dark side.
Welcome to Star Wars Chatter, hosted by ANDOR Van Zark. Now you're listening to Power. The information on this podcast is my opinion and some internet research. Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Chatter. I'm ANDOR Van Zark, and this is your safe space which goes Star Wars. So let's get it. But before, a word from our sponsor. The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 7% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid. Now, to get started here with the show, let's get it right in and straight ahead. Today we're going to talk about a few characters from the ANDOR series. Some of them are really awesome, and some of them are just casual characters that we might know from Rogue One or throughout the whole ANDOR story, or maybe some comics or whatnot. But let's dive into it with the actors, actresses, and the roles within the story. So, it's all based on StarWars.com, and we're going to give my opinions, and at the same time, we are going to just talk about what the articles say of each of the three characters. We're going to talk about Bix, we're going to talk about Kino Loy, and we're going to talk about heroes of their own journeys with the ISB characters and the Primor characters. There's Dej Ramiro and there's Cyril Karn, which I love those characters in so many shapes and forms because they are making a great addition to the Star Wars lore within Star Wars Andor, and I find that really awesome, to say the least. So, for those of you that are joining the show here on AMP, make sure to follow me on AMP, and you'll be greeted with a lot of awesome music and Star Wars information. So, let's get it started. First, we're going to talk about Bix, and it's Andor's Adrias Arjonas on the downward spiral of Bix Caleen. So the actor tells StarWars.com about working with creator Tony Guillory to build up the self-made scavenger before tearing her down at the hands of the Empire. I have found that these characters are so well put together. And welcome to the show, Gregory. Welcome to the show. So, the thing is that Bix is one of my favorite characters so far when it comes to the characters within Ferrix. And it was interesting when Dej Ramiro got her and they started, torturing her and interviewing her. That was an actual awesome time. And it does bring a little bit of that thrill kind of thing that Andor has been building up so far. So, the office in Adrian Arjona's London's apartment looked like it was being inhabited by an observees, or her unwearying focus set on Bix Caleen. I looked like a serial killer because I had notepads everywhere. Arjona tells StarWars.com. I just kept telling everyone, I'm an actress. If you come in, don't get scared. I'm just sort of plotting and connecting the dots that would take Bix to where she ends up. So the crew behind Andor, now streaming on Disney Plus, and we're gonna have our season finale pretty damn soon, was hard to work in production for the first season at Pinewood Studios at the time, and Arjona and creator Tony Guillory discussed Bix's character's arc at length. Now, more than 3/4 of the way through the season, viewers have witnessed the downward spiral, taking Bix from self-made salvage dealer at the start to torture captive being held against her will by the Empire. Bix is bold and fearless, hardworking and incredibly loyal, sometimes her own detriment. Arjona explains, but her world begins unraveling swiftly. Quoting here again, she really takes care of the people around her. She has created a family. Her friends are sort of her family, Arjona continues. And quoting again, she is the owner of and manager of the salvage yard and understands what that means and how quick someone can lose it, especially in a world like Ferrix, which is so industrial and so competitive. She's very into being the best. So when Kazian comes to ask her for a big favor, I think that decision means so much more, and it's much more intense for Bix, because she really could lose it all. Yes, and we can totally see that exactly when Tetramiro starts interviewing her and torturing her, asking about Luthen, asking about Andor, and anyone around that has to do with whatever Bix is selling and salvaging. So, of course, introducing Kazian to the buyer, Luthen Rail, just as Primor security is about to converge on Ferrix on Andor's tail on a tip-off from Tim, his exciting incident in the first arc that spurs the rest of the seasons and Bix's inevitable descent. And it's that moment, even more than being tortured by Tetramiro and the ISB, that fractures Big's Callan's resolved, Arjona says. Quoting here, "I think that the betrayal of Tim is that completely breaks her. She can't understand why that happened, and also feels so silly and stupid, and sort of judges herself. She trusted him, and she doesn't really trust people. That sort of takes her on this spiral where she's no longer Bix. She loses that autonomy. She loses that power, that fierceness. I mean, she saw her partner sort of die in front of her, and that is pretty intense to say the least. I would have not liked to be in that situation, nor in her shoes at that point in time. And I think this is a death that really is what switches everything for Bix. And that head injury doesn't help her either. At all. I think she's losing it a little bit when it comes to, her own memories of what's right, what's wrong, what she's doing, what she's not doing, and still getting back in her feet from the physical damage. Bix is taken into custody by the ISB and detained for questioning about her relationship to Kazian, leading to brutal psychological interrogation. That's when the downward spiral takes hold. Quoting here, "After she gets captured, she sort of becomes this prey," Arjona says. Bait in the trap to bring Kazian Andor back to his homeworld. I think Tony made such a great and interesting choice. We've seen torture scenes so much in cinema for so many years. How do you do it differently? And what do you do different, you might be asking yourself. So the creative decision to construct an auditory device, leaving the viewers to imagine the sound for themselves, while watching Bix react in agony, was brilliant. So even thinking about it just messes with my head and with my brain. You have so little control about that, it could really affect the way that you think. And while we don't know where she'll end up when the Empire is done interrogating Callan, the Bix we met at the beginning of the series is no more. What I wanted to do, and I asked Tony, I really wanted her to turn into this child, Arjona says. You meet her as this woman that is so empowered and has everything under control, who takes care of Kazian, and then towards the end, she cannot even take care of herself. If you want to learn more about this, on the Star Wars official YouTube channel, there's more information out of Bix and how she manages to portray her character and stuff like that, But I think that Kazian, Andor, and the way that they connect to Bix and whatnot it's brilliant, It was funny seeing her boyfriend at that time being jealous of Kazian Andor, but we all know, thanks to Rogue One, that they're gonna end up together. So it's no surprise, for me at least, that that's going to be a thing. So moving on here to another character that I've started to enjoy a lot, and I was really interested in knowing about this character, is Kino Loy. And we're going to talk about the tragedy of Kino Loy, Andy Serkis on his return to Star Wars in Andor. So the actor tells StarWars.com about crafting a backstory for the Narkina 5 floor manager in the latest Star Wars live-action series. So let's get it out and let's talk about Kino Loy. And no, it's not Snoke. So both characters are played by Andy Serkis in Star Wars Galaxy, with Loy most recently appearing in Andor. But like Jar Jar Binks and Ankh-Meg Begs, both portrayed by Ahmed Best, as well as C-3PO and Dan Fatoni, both portrayed by Anthony Daniels. That doesn't mean that they are the same character. So let's dive in here. Quoting here, I was slightly trepidatious because when I came into it, I was thinking, oh, no. The Snoke theories are just going to go crazy. Serix tells StarWars.com about his reaction to early conversations about the role. So, is this Snoke? Has he come back? Question mark. Well, his worries subside as soon as he met with Andor's creator Tony Guillory. To discuss the character, we're gonna dive in right now. So, Serkis was already a fan of Guillory's work. I was such a huge fan of Rogue One, which I absolutely adore, and when we met, we talked about the part of Kino Loy. I really just fell in love with the character. Between Guillory's pitch and Serkis reading the script for the 3-episode arc, the actor began to construct a detailed biography for Loy, a regular practice for the artist. In Serik's mind, it seemed clear that his take on Loy would have put him in the job of shop steward or foreman before his incineration. He used to work on the factory floor and standing up for workers' rights. Serix says this man who cares for others, and he just suddenly finds himself in a world where he has to keep himself head down. Not speaking his truth and just try to get through his sentence believing that he's going to be freed. And what's interesting about this is that he wasn't freed at all, you know? It's interesting how Loy was so afraid on what he had to do and the Empire was listening and whatnot, when in reality the Empire doesn't really care. All they want is the results to be done and to be finished right there. So I doubt that Kino Loy, if he would have followed his sentence, would have been freed. Same with Casey and Andor. Because if we know the scene when the old man dies, they say no one's getting out. So, hence why I thought that there's no way out for Kasian and Kino and the rest. So they have to plot an escape. They had to. It was the only way. So in his own way, Loy shows his compassion for his men by trying to keep them in the line to avoid punishment. Here was a man who is quite forceful. He's direct and actually hard-headed. I think by harsh treatment that he's received on Narkina 5, says Serkish. He's a task manager and is quite unforgiving and shuts people down, and it's almost a bully in a way, but the system is all about competition. The way that the floor is run, it's about beating other people, and if you're not, then you're electrocuted. It's a punishment or reward, and the reward are meager. You know, the rewards supposedly were that you would have better food and yada yada and better, commodities and whatnot, but in reality, it's the same thing. You're treated like the worst, so what's the point? Honestly, it's best to just do the bare minimum. If I was a prisoner in Narkina 5 under the Imperials, I would be like, I'll just do the bare minimum, because there's no reason why to be the best, They might promote you that, if you do this, you're gonna get this, and in reality, you're not getting half of what they're saying. So, however, once Casey and Andor arrives and starts questioning everything, Kino is confronted by the mounting evidence that the Empire's sentence are meaningless. And once word spread out that an inmate was mistakenly released only to be imprisoned on a different floor of the same facility, Kino begins to find the strength to join Kasian's cause. So, quoting here, what was exciting was to have Kino Loy and Kasian gradually become united. But as we all know, Kino cannot swim, so I don't know what happened with Kino. Did he change his mind? Is he back in Narkina 5? We don't know. That's something that we might find out in the last episode of the season. So what was exciting was to have Kino Loy do all the stuff that he was forging into. And I loved when in One Way Out, he started talking to the microphone and letting out this big old message and motivational speech to have people get the strength they needed to get out of Narkina 5. Because if that wasn't the case, I'm sure that they would have been completely executed in any shape or form. So it was creating a character who's been toughened, and then through Cassian's desire to stand up for others, it reignites in a toughness at the beginning was set up on purpose to then break down into the more friendlier Kino that we know now. So once he realizes that there is absolutely no point in believing anymore that being released is an option, he reaches a moment of enlightenment, really cruelly, and then he finds the generosity in himself again. And then the spirit and the desire to speak up, it was a reality, beautifully crafted arc, and I really enjoyed playing him, says the actor, Circus, So, Kino and Cassian, when they first met, the actor Circus meets Diego Luna. He was watching Rogue One, a Star Wars story, on screen just a year after his own professional debut in the galaxy. So, again, quoting here, what is so brilliant about this franchise is this universe is that it can allow for that amount of humanity to really come through in Rogue One. The other Star Wars worlds are beautifully drawn in a slightly more operatic and heightened world that they operate in, which is equally delicious, if I might say. But this always felt like a real grit and real sweat. The story just felt very complete and grounded. So getting in the chance to play a character opposite Diego Luna was one of the reasons he was eager to take on the role. That was another very strong reason why I wanted to do this, because I really love Diego's acting and I love Cassian as a character. So to have a chance to really intimately get to work together was incredible. He was such a major talent and a brilliant gifted actor and storyteller and really generous. A really great natural leader. He also directs, so it was lovely to have that conversation with him as well, says Circus right here. So to ground out the character here a little bit, once production was in full swing, working barefoot on the Stark's prison set brought something new to the experience. The actual shooting of it was really hard because of the environment, Circus says. The set was so unforgiving, the prison's outfit just so unforgiving, and the whole notion of walking around on metal plates with bare feet does a very strange thing to your head. It completely sapped you out of any strength. There was no personal space at all. Everything was clinical. Circus credits that the designers for fabricating a space that worked to bring that sense of authenticity to the shoot. The set design work was phenomenal in the way that it did make you feel like you were in some strange kind of experiment. Combined with the writing of Guillory's vision, Circus' heartbreakingly raw performance, Kino Loy was born. All of these really helped to mold the character from the writing through the design, through the talks that we had, and then the understanding, of course, that I knew where he would end up, knowing the fact that he never really was going to be able to get out of this, even while he was to carry on inspiring others to do so. There is a lot of pathos in the roles, and I really enjoy playing that, but keeping him grounded at all times so it didn't become sentimental, said Circus. I love Kino Loy. The character of Kino Loy is a great addition to the Star Wars story. It does bring that tension and release that we all are looking for within Star Wars Andor, because eventually we're going to have what leads us up to Rogue One. The second season is already in production, so I'm excited for that in many shapes and forms. Now, moving on to other two characters, here are some of the heroes of their own journeys, and this is none other than Dedra Meero and Cyril Karn, which aren't your typical minions of the Empire. So the Andor antagonists are Fierce and Nost, two characters that are once read as villains and regular people making dangerous decisions in the quest for power, and together they could be a potent force to track down Cassian Andor and the Borgian Rebellion. But actor Denise Goth and Kyle Soller seem to be nothing like their characters. In a darkened room on the interview circuit, to the two keeping erupting into laughter as they try to describe their own on-screen counterparts. So, Goth says here, super fun. And then, they all say, yeah, really polite, really like into, craft, soldiers, officers. They have hobbies, so chill, Goth counters. And then she says, they meditate a lot, you know? They're really well-balanced and well-adjusted people, Solars finishes. So that may describe Solars and Goth, but Karn and Miro are quite the opposite. Two intense individuals who are so tightly wounded. They're always on the verge of snapping small cogs in the massive imperial machines driven by the desire to succeed in the fascist empire. So creator Tony Guillory himself has said, it's hard not to root for the pair, an element he deliberately seated in the story on his quest to give both heroes and villains the complexity of a real, nuanced people. And I do think that Dedra Miro and Cyril are gonna end up together in some shape or form. They do seem right for each other, you know? So Miro, for example, exists in a male-dominated world, but quickly overcomes whatever gender-based stereotype might otherwise hinder her process. I want to be very conflicted about your feelings about her. The great thing about Dedra, and what I love about playing her, is that when I first started playing her, I was sitting in this room surrounded by these men. A lot of men who weren't doing their jobs properly, you know? This was said by Goth to StarWars.com. And so I was really rooting for Dedra. You're really on her side. And actually, I was really on her side for a while there. And then she does certain things that you just think, okay, maybe I can't support that. Not at all. For people watching, you know, initially you really want her to succeed. And I was really happy when they gave her the role of supervisor. And it's a great thing, and I was really happy for that. But at the same time, I'm like, why am I rooting for the Empire? We gotta go for the rebellion. But because you just see a woman really striving for success, but then what you have to sit is, once you get on board with her at the beginning, just because she's a woman in a man's world, well, she is, just as capable of doing the most heinous things for power, you know? And I do think that for power, there's no such thing as gender. Either you're a female or a male. If you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. So somebody said to me the other day, please don't redeem her. And I thought, oh, that's so good, you know? Don't apologize. Let her be just as ambitious as she is, the most villainous of men and color, and all in the shade so that everyone's conflicted when they're watching. So Karn exists on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of his relatively success, while Miro is climbing the ranks inside the ISB and providing her with worth. Karn is stripped of his duty with pre-Moore security and sent home to Coruscant, where the disgraced young man must move back with his mother, Eddie. They share an intimate and drive that plays out over the course of several interactions and episodes. So quoting here, when I met Kyle and when we did our first scenes together, I thought, oh, this is great because he's a bit of an intense as Dedra is, Goth said. So between us, as actors, we're really matching each other at the level that they are needed to exist on, which is, you know, ambitious and intense. Driven, hungry, power hungry, Solar adds. Both Miro and Karn come from nothing, so their drive is informed by a desire to fit in and prove their worth, and find their place in the vast galaxy. They both come from a place of lack, Goth said. They have the need to be seen and achieved so that they can feel validated, because I think, you know, psychologically, they weren't validated. You always just blame the parents. So those are characters from the Andor series that I really love and I really enjoy, and they play a big part within the story of Star Wars Andor. As much as the story is about Andor and the rebellion building up to destroy the Empire, I still think that these characters play a good part within the story. The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 10% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid. This was the Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andrew Van Zark. If you have any thoughts or any messages that you want to leave me, go check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. or my website, www.andorvansart.com. And I'll catch you on the flip side. When you listen to Andor Van Zark, you listen with power. Now you're listening with power. Andor Van Zark. Stream on every major music platform. Power to the music.